Stephanie rules on time.
I do recall them telling me you just showed up 10 minutes before I came upstairs, but all right.
All right, we ready? We good? What up, what up, what up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? I want to thank you for joining us for another edition of the Charles Coleman Podcast. Super excited about today's conversation. This is going to be an amazing one. I always say that I work with dope people, and this is no exception to the rule. But before I let you know and introduce someone who truly needs no introduction, I got to remind you, make sure you are liked and subscribed to the Charles Coleman Podcast across Spotify, iHeart, YouTube, all of the things, Amazon, Google Podcasts. We are all the way up in outer space, so come get with us, the Charles Coleman Podcast, your home for Black Brilliance. And with that, we are going to have one of our Black Brilliance conversations today with a mover, a shaker, and someone who I work with and who I have known for a while, and I'm super duper excited to have on the couch today, the one, the only Dr. Symone Sanders-Townsend is with us today for the podcast. Good afternoon. How
People
are
don't
you?
know, but I do have an honorary doctorate.
This is what I'm put some respect on your name.
I do.
This is what I'm saying. A lot of people don't know. So where did you get your honorary doctorate from?
From American University. I did one of their commencements.
Oh, that's a real school, like, because you know people
Yes,
people be paying for it.
Yes.
And it don't, but that's real.
Yes, I did a commencement. My penance, my payment was the honorary doctorate.
Was the honorary doctorate? I'm not mad. So is it like arts and letters? Like, what's the document?
I need to check the thing, actually. I'm quite unsure. I don't know.
You can't use the doctorate.
It was a public service situation.
You can't.
I need to, you know what? I'm going to talk to my co-host at work, and I'm going to see if I can get the doctor added to all of the promo materials that we're doing on the Chiron.
But you got to know what you're a doctor of.
Well, we're going to work on that.
Yeah.
I have a note. I got notes from this interview.
We got a lot to talk about, doctor. But before we do, there's something that we do on the Charles Coleman Podcast. It's called One's Gotta Go. So if you've seen previous episodes, we've had a lot of people on the couch.
Yes. Stephanie Rule was on the couch recently.
Stephanie Rule's been on the couch. Joy Reid's been on the couch. My first guest, a lot of people may not remember this. The first guest I've ever had on the Charles Coleman Podcast from anywhere was Michael Steele.
Michael Steele, we love Michael Steele. He's one of my new co-hosts of the weekend on MSNBC.
We are going to get right into the weekend in just a moment. But one thing that we do is we play a game called One's Gotta Go.
Okay.
It's like an icebreaker, right? And so the idea with One's Gotta Go, I'm going to give you 4 things. And one of those things has to go. All of it. All right? So this, because a lot of people don't know this, you hail from the great state of Nebraska.
Yes, I do.
All right. So this is the One's Gotta Go Nebraska edition.
Oh, Lord.
I had a hard time coming up with this because there ain't a whole lot of stuff from Nebraska that's going to say.
It's actually not true.
All right. Well, all right. So I'm going to give you 4 things, all Nebraska related.
Okay.
And one's got to go.
One's got to go.
Omaha steaks.
But you have to give me all 4.
I'm going to give you all 4.
Okay, Omaha steaks.
Yeah, I'm going to give you all 4. Omaha steaks. Cornhuskers football. Corn ice cream. Because that's the thing apparently in Nebraska. Or Malcolm Little.
Corn ice cream.
Corn ice cream?
Yes.
Have you ever had it?
No, but I have seen it. I've been to the fair and I have seen it. I will never eat it.
What is it?
I don't want corn in my ice cream.
What does it look like?
Like corn ice cream.
Like
corn in the ice cream. Yeah. And sometimes they can blend it up so it's kind of like a custard type situation. Definitely not getting rid of Malcolm Little, Malcolm X. He's from Omaha, down the street. And we're not going to get rid of Cornhusker football. Go Big Red. And
you got
Omaha steaks, we're never getting rid of the Omaha steaks.
You keeping your steaks?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the ice cream gotta go.
Gotta go.
Now, aside from your opinion, this is very fascinating to me. Like, how popular is that?
Not wildly. Not where I'm from. I'm from North Omaha.
Oh, you've the north side. That's what it is. North Omaha in the building. Y'all heard it. Get it right. North Omaha out here. That's what we doing. North Omaha.
North Omaha.
Tell me about North Omaha.
North Omaha. So, look, I'm from North Omaha. My mother is originally from Nebraska. My father was from Mound Bayou, Mississippi, but he was in the military, and there's a base right outside of Omaha in Bellevue. So that's how he got to Nebraska. North Omaha is like, Any other town or city, I would argue, across the town,
I find that
like
hard
a
to believe.
Minneapolis. Okay, if people have ever been to Minneapolis or St. Louis,
Prince is rolling over
very
his
similar.
grave that she was prepared.
Well. It sounds to me like you haven't been to Omaha, and so
I
yes,
haven't.
yes, North Omaha. There are many things to hail from North Omaha. Malcolm X, Kathy Hughes, TV1. Everyone knows about Kathy Hughes. We love her. Native North Omahan. Gabrielle Union.
She's from North
Yes,
Omaha.
Gab is definitely from North Omaha. She reps all day.
That's your
Her
peoples?
uncle still lives there, and they come and visit often. Yes, so North Omaha's a great place.
All right. I'm gonna let you slide on them 3 names because I know if I asked before, you'd be shot. So I'm gonna let you
Warren
rock on them 3
Buffett.
names. Warren Buffett?
He's from Omaha.
All right. So, let's move on. You have got a lot going on. Congratulations on everything that you've been doing. Obviously, people don't know that we have known each other for some years.
Yeah, I've known Charles since he was a political commentator at another network.
I've known Symone since she was a press secretary for another campaign.
Yes,
long
my
time
first
ago.
presidential campaign when I worked for Senator Sanders.
That's right.
And now to go from there to all of the other political things to we're literally about to launch a new show it's just crazy. It just all seems so insane, but very exciting and another crazy presidential election cycle.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But first and foremost, the weekend.
The weekend.
Here. The weekend. MSNBC's new weekend flagship show. It's an ensemble cast.
Yes.
It's you, Michael Steele, and Alicia Menendez.
Yes, getting up early.
What's
8 a.m. Eastern to 10 a.m. every Saturday and Sunday.
Every Saturday. They got
Which means
y'all
we gotta get up
2
real
hours.
early.
2 hours. Huh?
2 hours. And look, the weekend is the place where we want people to come and start their weekend, literally. We getting up, we want you to get up with us. And again, this is a consequential election season, but there's also so much happening. And so the weekend is a place where you'll be able to come and get the news, get perspective, get some analysis. We'll have some newsmakers on for our launch show this weekend. We've got, can I say? I'm looking over at Olivia. I'm like, can I say who we have? I don't think we told anybody. Governor Wes Moore of Maryland is going to come through. Secretary Pete Buttigieg is coming. Quentin Fulks from the Biden campaign, because we got some questions about what is going on with the campaign, definitely given this debate situation we just saw in the town hall with Donald Trump. And also we have, oh my God. We got some great people.
Y'all ain't got no legal news?
We do have some legal news. We're going to get into all of it. I mean, again, the weekend is the place where you come and you can get it all. People want enough just to be conversational, Charles, you know. Like they want enough information to be conversational. They want to be able to talk about the news of the day, but also peel back some of the layers. Like, what does it mean that Donald Trump is saying he's immune from prosecution? Because he was president. I don't understand. Is that normal? It is not. And this is not normal. So I'm excited that we get to do it with 3 folks who are familiar with the MSNBC audience. You said Michael Steele was your first guest on the podcast.
Sure
I didn't
was.
know that. I'm thoroughly enjoying being able to sit across the table from Michael Steele because he's hilarious. But he also brings all that knowledge and experience from being the chairman of the RNC. And Alicia, I've known Alicia, I think, just as long as I've known you since
Really?
Yes, we met in New Hampshire and she interviewed me when she was at a different network when I worked for Senator Sanders. And so now for us all to be sitting at the table together every morning, we're going to bring you the news. We're going to have a little fun. And we're excited.
A lot of people don't realize how funny Michael is. If you are someone who's listening to the podcast and you have not checked out the Michael Steele interview, it's a very good one. A lot of it is still very, very relevant. But one of the things I love about him is that he has that balance.
Yes.
Of being someone who is, because let's be honest, there is in some cases a tendency to sort of look at Michael and there's sort of generational bias in some places, and then there's also the bias of, oh, who's this black Republican dude? Until you actually talk to Michael, until you actually get to know him, or even you don't even have to get to know him, listen to him. And you're like, okay, this is something different.
Yes.
And I had another opportunity to explore that with him in a different conversation that I'm going to be telling y'all about sooner than later. But it's a very interesting mix. So tell me about, how did this mix of like the cast get put together? Like Very fascinating.
It is the beauty and the brainchild of Rashida Jones, our fearless leader, the president of the network.
Shout out boss lady Rashida.
We love the boss lady.
We love the boss lady. Shout out boss lady Rashida.
And I think you talk about the different, just diverse background of the three different hosts. And I think that's important. This is, people, when they turn on the television, and regardless of whether we're talking about Trump, Biden, the tornado that might have just come through a town or a city, whatever the news is, everybody doesn't have the same perspective. And I think that people are looking for robust conversation. So we're just advocates for the viewer here. We want the viewers to make their own decisions. And because the three of us have this isn't Crossfire. We were doing interviews the other day and someone said, is this going to be like a political knockdown? I'm like, not at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, but this is a conversation. And we are putting context around the conversation that people are definitely having, maybe introducing conversations they didn't think they needed to have, new perspectives, and the different backgrounds of each of us, I think will contribute heavily to that. But we're also going to pull from other MSNBC talent like yourself, the other legal analysts. NBC has a large depth and breadth of reporters that are all over the country. We're going to pull from those folks. And so when people tune in, they're going to see the newsmakers, they're going to see some other familiar faces, and it's just going to be exciting.
No, I'm super excited to not only watch you all, but also to participate because I enjoy working with all three of you.
Yes. We did a post-debate special just this week.
And
you
talking to you
a
couple hours ago on the television.
People came on the set at like 12 and 1 a.m. So that's a little taste of what people can expect from the weekend.
And it was just a really, really good conversation. And I think that that's what you guys are going to bring. And I'm very, very much looking forward to it. So make sure everybody's tuned into the weekend. I think with your mix, you have a very unique space that you occupy in terms of voicing the perspective and concerns of millennials and millennial voters. Like, I'm not gonna put your age out there.
I'm 34.
Right. A lot of and I wasn't going.
I just turned 34 in December.
Congrats! Happy birthday again. The reason why that's so significant is, like, you wasn't no intern. You were a press secretary for a campaign that a lot of people at the time felt like got railroaded out of the Democratic nomination. That's a very big deal.
That's actually not what happened, but yes.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, that's what. Yes.
I'm just telling you how I said a lot of people felt that way, right? And then you were, on another campaign that did get the nomination and then won, and then you were the spokesperson for the first Black vice president of the United States of America. And that was a while ago. And you're 34 now. So when I say all of that, I say, like, your resume is like that. It's diesel. And I give you all of the props for it. I feel like there's this very interesting cadence when you talk about millennial voters in election cycles, where we know up front, they're going to be important. But they're not spoken to. They're spoken about and around a little bit. And then, somewhere a little bit before the actual conventions for both parties come up, they begin to get a little bit more attention.
You think people start to talk about they wait till that's like usually summer. All the conventions happen summer, July, August.
In August. And then, we get an October surprise, and we don't necessarily hear about millennial voters until after the election, when people are analyzing the numbers.
And how effective they were. I mean, when you think about, so this is going to be an election cycle. And I think the craziest part is when people say millennials, I think they automatically go to college students. And those are not millennials, okay? The college students are Gen Z. Millennials, the oldest millennials are 40 years old. Like, they 40, 41. They have, we talk a lot about suburban moms in politics. And I think people hear suburban moms and they think that is code for suburban white women, but the suburbs are increasingly more diverse. The suburban moms are millennials, and they're going to be consequential to this election and have been key to the last two midterm elections, and they were key to the last two presidential elections. Millennials made a difference in 2020 for Joe Biden, and they made a difference in 2016 for Hillary Clinton.
So, right. So, and I picked up what you was just putting down there, but for our viewers who might have missed that, what she meant was, in 2016, the outreach to millennials wasn't there the way that it needed to be, and that's why we had partially the result that we did, that in Russia.
Well, a lot. And one could argue James Coleman had a little something to do with it, and the press conferences. But see, this is why I think this is why I think the kind of conversations that folks are having around our political discourse is key, and people who really understand and have had experience in the various fields. And I mean, frankly, these are the kind of conversations we're going to have on the show. Like, millennials are going to be key to 2024. So let's unpack how the campaigns are reaching out to them. Again, we have Quentin Folks on this weekend on the show, and
I'd like a word.
I know lots of people have questions
I would like a word.
Mr. Folks about black voters, black men, Latino men.
Quentin, get in touch with me. I'd like a word.
Millennial voters as well. I mean, I think about, we are ceasefire, okay? Go with me. You like, where is she going with the ceasefire?
I'm waiting.
There is a war currently being waged between Israel and Hamas, and it is disproportionately affecting the Palestinian people, innocent people that have nothing to do with Hamas. All across the country, people have been protesting, all across in America. I mean, heck, I live in Washington, D.C. They were protesting Mayor Bowser at her her 5K relay on New Year's Day.
Can't even run.
Looking for, they running with her, looking for a ceasefire to pray. So President Biden was at Mother Emanuel AME Church recently, literally a couple days after the January 6th.
And people started calling for a ceasefire in the audience.
They did. In the church, in Mother Emanuel AME. Now, people like myself tweeted like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening in Mother Emanuel AME. And the face that you are making is...
I need to stop you right there.
That's what people said.
You really couldn't believe that didn't happen?
I could not. Mother Emanuel AME is hallowed ground. It is in a church where the pastor of that church and parishioners were gunned down in a Bible study.
Sure.
Now, a couple get like... It is hallowed ground. It is one of the oldest black churches in the country.
And if in that space, I don't want to get too deep on this one, but if in that space there cannot be an honest dialogue about the humanity of people in terms of their lives, and what that means, and the responsibility that America has as a global leader to engage in earnest in that conversation, where else can that conversation take place?
You make a very good point about honest dialogue, and you took me right to where I would like to go.
Come on now.
As we discussed, I worked another presidential campaign back in the day for Senator Bernie Sanders. Before I worked for Senator Sanders, he was getting protested regularly. People would hop on the stages, interrupt him, take the mic. So, it's a thing.
Hold on, I got to tell this story. So I remember, a lot of y'all might have forgot this. I remember this story, and I forgot about the story. Somebody, how old were you?
I was 25 when I worked for Senator Sanders.
So somebody during one of Senator Sanders' press conferences, it was outside. I'll never forget this because I saw the video. They tried to get on the stage, and you either got in front of them or...
I do not recall that.
I could easily pull this
I don't recall that. I recall dairy protesters protesting then candidate Biden in 2020, and we know they were protesting dairy. They were just running on the stage, and I may have had a hand in removing a protester. Y'all can Google it. For Senator Sanders, I never blocked anybody from the stage because what they were... I mean, I didn't work there when people were protesting, to be clear.
Okay.
But my first day on the job, I was on a plane, I get off the plane, and I see this video of these two black women who had interrupted Senator Sanders on the stage at a Medicare for All rally.
That's what it was.
I was on a plane. You see this misinformation? I was on a plane.
This is some time ago.
Well, yes, it was. Yes, it was. It's 2015. I say this to say that obviously we talk about I'm from Nebraska. I'm sure people were like, are there black people in Nebraska? There are black people all over this country. And yes, there are black people in Nebraska, North Omaha especially. I was viscerally uncomfortable. I would be very uncomfortable and told them I was with the idea of like, if y'all think somebody hopping on the stage while I'm standing there, I don't want the visual. So it's like, what do we do? And I had to have a conversation with my, new campaign colleagues and the senator. And I told them the reason people are protesting is because they do not think that you hear them. And they don't feel as though you are listening to them, and they feel the only way to get your attention and for you to hear them is if they interrupt you at one of your events. And they are looking for your attention because they are trying to affect what you are doing. Perhaps we should offer some meetings. And that's what we started doing. So every place that Senator Sanders would travel across the country for like 2 or 3 months, my first 2 or 3 months on the campaign, there were many places where there were threats of a protest. And what our campaign team would do is we would reach out to the activists on the ground, the people that we, thought are the organizers, and offer them a meeting with Senator Sanders. But only after the event was over, and had them promise if they didn't protest, not only would Senator Sanders come back there and spend substantial time hearing from you, he's not coming to talk at you, he's coming to hear from you and engage in a dialogue with you towards the end, but he really wants to hear what you all have to say because that's why you protested anyway. But we'll bring the policy staff as well because it's one thing for the candidate to hear, but the people who are advising the candidate in his ear or their ear, they matter as well. From the time I worked for Senator Sanders till I left, there was not a protest. Because people are protesting because they want to be heard. And so, yes, to a dialogue about the plight of the Palestinian people, absolutely. But to be very clear, again, in this consequential election cycle, what is happening in the Gaza Strip is absolutely going to affect how people feel and what they do when it comes to the ballot box. It's going to matter in Michigan. For sure.
And
Dearborn, largest Arab American population in the country.
And you can't win Michigan without Dearborn.
Not if you're a Democrat. A Democrat has not won. If you want to win Michigan, you got to win the suburbs as a Democrat. And Dearborn is in the suburbs right outside of Detroit. So I say that to say that perhaps, and this is something I definitely think we're going to get into with Quentin Folks. What is the campaign strategy for hearing from people so the candidate themselves can hear? Because part of the issues that I glean from the outside looking in that they're having is people don't feel like you hear them. I used to work at the White House. I remember during the student loan, the initial whole student loan fight where are the payments going to resume? Are they not?
Right.
The payments were resuming, and then all of a sudden they didn't resume anymore, and we kicked the can down the road a little bit. There were protesters outside the White House. And we could hear them inside the White House. If you were in the West Wing of the White House, the people were that loud. You, in the middle of your meetings, and then 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you could hear them. The protesters have been outside for a while, but I'm going to just be very honest. It was not until some of the people who are associated with those protesters got into the rooms with, the principals and the senior advisors and the chief of staff at the time and whatnot, that the policy change happened.
But so
it's an outside-inside strategy.
But right, a lot of people don't really understand or appreciate that's literally how protest is supposed to function. It's supposed to function as part of a larger strategy with movement. Protest, I tell people this a lot, is space making. It is space making to create opportunities for conversations that otherwise would not be being had on the inside to actually take place. And so that's appropriate. I want to hear from you. Give me your top 3 things that millennial voters are likely to be concerned about.
Millennial voters are concerned about the economy. Remember, millennial voters, they span the gamut. Some the youngest millennials could be 25, 26, oldest millennials, 40, 41. They care about the economy. I also think they care about the longevity. This democracy argument that the Biden campaign is saying that they are going to make in 2024, I think that it has the potential to break through, but what is democracy? Are we talking about freedoms? Right. Are we talking about voting rights? Are we talking about reproductive health? But I do think that there is something there about the longevity of just the quality of life for people in this country, millennials especially. So I think I'm going to give you my top 2. Those are my 2 top general things that I think they care about.
We might have to revisit this at some point because I think that...
Do you disagree?
No, it's not
that.
No, I don't. You're right. I don't. That's okay. It's a conversation. I don't necessarily disagree. I do think that there's going to be some nuance that emerges from these conversations in terms of what that looks like and what that means.
And to be very clear, you talk about millennials. Millennials are one of the most diverse groups of voters in this country. And so what white millennial voters, what they are focused on, it might differ just a little bit.
Sure.
I think millennials across the board, everybody care about the economy. I think everyone cares about the economy. Whether you're black, white, Latino,
How much
Asian
stuff
American.
costs?
Yes,
matters,
yes,
right?
yes,
Like,
yes. The economy is
really
doing quite well. Record low unemployment, but people are still feeling the squeeze. Goldman Sachs did this survey recently and about black women and the economy, and 71% of black women in this survey said that they felt like they live paycheck to paycheck. That's a concerning number. If the economy is a key thing that lots of people care about, and I'm talking about diverse set of millennials and black women are a part of that, at 71% feeling like they live paycheck to paycheck, that to me doesn't say they are coming out at 95% like they did in 2020 to vote for Joe Biden.
And that brings me to my next question. You brought up the notion of democracy. And this conversation has been had ad nauseum. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be. I understand why. And I understand it's a very important
conversation. You don't like the democracy messaging.
I guess it's potent. Well, that was really my question. I am not sold that democracy is an issue that is going to win an election. I think that.
Why not?
Because
and to be clear, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents are all talking about democracy there, but they have very different messages.
Very different messages around it. I mean, I think that, unfortunately, we are in a space, I worry that we're in a space politically where we are the boy who cried wolf. Because we have, for a number of different elections, going back to Bush Gore, been saying how, this is the most important election of our lifetime, and democracy is threatened, and Karl Rove at that time was going to destroy American democracy. And now, most of the people who were saying that then would love to have that as the problem, Karl Rove and George W. Bush as the problem to contend with on an electoral stage. So I think there's only been so many times that you can ring that alarm before people are like, well, how is this different than the last time? So I understand how it's different.
But I think that is an important point, and I think that's why providing context around this conversation is key, because yes, this is something everybody says every election going back to Bush v. Gore. It's the most consequential election of our lifetime. And it's what they tell young people. And it's like, young people have to vote. It's the most consequential. People fought and died for your right to vote.
Right.
And and to be clear, those young people have been voting. And since that time, they've seen, especially millennials, they've seen Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown. Somebody paid a lot of money
under a black
for them.
AG.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That messaging
but Eric
doesn't
Holder
always
will tell
align.
you he was just, doing the work of the administration.
And I'm not mad at that, but what I'm saying is that messaging doesn't always align in a way that makes people feel like your ass justified.
I think the stakes are just so much higher in this election. We are not, as we've been doing a lot of, obviously lead up to the Iowa caucuses, really the kickoff of the 2024 campaign season. So we've been doing a lot of conversation around the debates and the town halls, and we'll have more, we'll be doing another post-debate special after the CNN is also hosting a debate in New Hampshire on the 18th. So we'll have a post-debate special after that where we'll unpack that New Hampshire debate. And I just think it is really important for people to understand, like, this is not, and as we're talking about it, some folks are like, oh, but some people are going to vote on the economy. Oh, yes, as I just discussed, it's 71% in that Goldman Sachs survey. But what is, wages being up in an economy where the president is a dictator? Like, what is unemployment being under 4%? When, women are being jailed for taking the healthcare that they need if that healthcare is an abortion. So this is just a little different.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that the space that we find ourselves in terms of people's approach is more a function of perhaps mismanaging messaging in the past in a way that has prevented us from having cogent messages in the present that resonate with the electorate.
I would agree with that on some. One could argue I advised the Biden campaign in 2020. And in retrospect, I think one of the things that if we could go back, I might say something different, is in fact that coming into the administration, I think a lot of people had a lot of very high expectations of what the president was going to be able to do. And this administration has been quite successful, but there are some things that have not gotten done because we do not live in a country where the president is a king or a dictator. There's a Congress. There are three legislative there are three branches.
I wasn't really gonna go here.
I'm just saying there are multiple branches of government, and people were like, if you look at focus groups, I like focus groups, and I think polls are good, but you got to look at I think state-based polls close to where voting is about to happen. So NBC News has been doing a lot of polling in Iowa specifically. And I think when the Iowa poll comes out, that's going to be a good barometer of where the Iowa voters are. I think when you look at battleground state polls like months out from election, I don't really know how that adds up. People might change their mind. Ask them again in August. But if you do look at some of the polling in the focus groups, people are like, oh, Joe Biden didn't get the student loans. And it's just like, the Supreme Court did block what he was doing.
I hear
he tried.
I hear you.
But you gotta message that. And I think that's the challenge for the Biden campaign.
That's where I'm going.
In 2024.
That's really where I'm going. Where I'm going with this is everything that you're saying notwithstanding, and I don't disagree with you.
It's true, yeah.
See. There's a lot of flexing going on, and I'll let it happen because I know who I'm on the couch with, but look, this is what it is. One of the things that I say thematically is that there is, on the left, a message problem and a messenger problem. And whatever it is that you're talking about in terms of the contours around how the current administration has overperformed, performed well, performed highly, somewhere that's being lost. And it's being lost because voter confidence in terms of Democratic voters, in terms of Black Democratic voters with Biden, he is looking at right now a level of voter participation from Black America that he cannot win with.
Oh, to be very clear, and I've said this to my former colleagues. I've said it on television. Joe Biden is no Barack Obama. So you can't do worse than Barack Obama did with Black voters in 2012 in your reelection here in 2024 and win. You cannot do worse than Barack Obama.
I gotta ask you, were you responsible for the if you don't vote for me, then you ain't Black?
Oh my God!
I just gotta
what
ask.
In the world?
I can't remember.
First of all, no one is responsible for that. I don't even know.
Don't
what you're
do
saying.
messaging?
I used to. Now
right.
I'm just an advocate for the viewer.
You did messaging, right?
I'm an advocate for the viewer.
Were you responsible for that message?
I wasn't. No one was responsible for that message. I believe that was a tongue-in-cheek moment that you were referring to, where then candidate Biden was in an interview.
See, this is the shit.
This tongue-in-cheek moment.
This is the shit I gotta do now.
Did not come across well.
This is the shit I gotta do now.
I do believe Joe Biden apologized
because now it's coming back to me. This is the shit I gotta do. Now she's gonna make me be a former prosecutor.
I used to work for a former prosecutor as well. I'm familiar with being on the witness stand.
Isn't it true that you were on the campaign during that time?
Yes, and I was on that.
And I remember this now. You came to his defense behind that, didn't you?
That's what I used to do. I used to be a spokesperson. I'd like to argue I was a very effective one for the Vice President of the United States of America, candidate Biden, and Bernie Sanders.
How does that happen? No. You know what? No. All jokes aside, I really take me through that day. All jokes aside.
I am not going to take you through the day, but I will say this because the fact that you bring it up, that is something that, as I've had the opportunity to travel the country, and as I'm talking to, and I think the concern around voters of color, Black voters specifically, for the Democratic Party apparatus is a real one in 2024. I think that they should, frankly, the campaign should be treating Black and brown voters as persuadable voters, just like they treat independent voters. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they're there yet. But I plan to ask Quentin Folks about all of it when we see him.
Hey, listen, Quentin, get in touch with us. I got questions, my dude. Quentin, get in touch with us. We got questions.
But what you bring up is a lingering thing. Like, you're not the first person as of late to raise that. And those kind of
snafus,
those kind of events that happen on the campaign trail, they will have lingering effect. I think back about like the super predators from
of course,
and that the Trump campaign in 2016 played Secretary Clinton with. I think back about the deplorables comment that was made. You can even go back to Mitt Romney and his binders full of women.
Or you could go back, if you really wanted to do it, you could go back to He's articulate. He's clean.
Oh yeah, all the
He's
way
clean.
back to.
If
Oh,
you could
well,
go
we
back,
not gonna talk about who said that.
Yeah,
one.
we don't
They were
do
talking
that,
about
right?
President Obama.
Yeah.
Then Senator
And who
Obama.
said that?
It was then. It was another candidate in that race in 2008.
Another candidate. Who was? Yeah.
Well, it was
I'm gonna let y'all
Senator
Google that.
Biden.
I'm gonna let y'all
It was then
Google.
Senator Biden.
We're gonna let political pop quiz.
But you see, this is why it is. I think it is really important to get the people in the room who are able to make the decisions and ask them the questions.
I want to address something with you, or get you to address something that happens a lot in terms of conversations with Black America. A lot of times we look at the notion of get out the vote and voter drives and participation from the perspective we have in community. And what does that mean? What does that look like? It looks like Jay-Z coming out, and Puff Daddy, and Beyonce. Well, maybe
I
not
think
now.
at this point, nobody's calling
Well,
Puff.
I'm not touching that, but it looks like a bunch of hip hop celebrities coming out.
I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you
I think
what
it
the people.
happens, but
I'm telling you
I
what
don't
the
think
people.
that's the only
I'm
thing.
telling you what the people feel like. The people feel like in our community, we are the ones who get a bunch of entertainers coming to sell us the Democratic Party.
People need to pay attention. So I think that there's two things. It's what candidates and campaigns do, and then it's what the nonpartisan entities, if you will, that do just want to jumpstart the machine of Black voter participation, which those are very important, I think, to the efforts of candidates and campaigns, regardless if they're Democrat, Republicans, or independents. But I will say, like in 2022, for example, the midterm elections, the Divine Nine was very intentional in places all across the country. Before I hosted the weekend, I hosted my own show, Symone on MSNBC, and I had every president of the Divine Nine on the show. You did?
I prepped
Okay.
Ricky for that
You
interview.
did, yeah, and he was good. Your bachelor's, he was very good and very specific, because I wanted to know, because not that I thought people were only bringing celebrities in, but it's like, okay, people, all of these organizations, whether it's fraternities or sororities or the Links or Urban League or NAACP, they all talk about the need to get out the vote. But how specifically are you doing that and talking to people in communities across the country?
But do candidates engage other communities in the same way? Like, are they looking to get the most popular Asian K-pop group or actors and go talk to their community? Or
sometimes, yes. In Georgia is a good example. In Georgia,
yeah, because they are right.
Georgia,
right, sure.
a substantial Asian American Pacific Islander population.
Mm-hmm.
They made a real difference in 2020 in Joe Biden winning that state. Georgia was very close, and I think I should also note that 2020 was close. 2024 is going to be a close race. It's why people need to be just very vigilant about misinformation and disinformation, because it's going to be a close race. But yes, in Georgia, for example, one of the organizing tactics that was used was to bring in celebrities that were familiar with various communities. And so it's not just it's not just that they do it for Black people, because that's just sad.
Well, yes, that's what you're alluding to. I was asking because I don't necessarily see those efforts in the same way, because they're not communities I'm a part of.
Or like with the efforts to engage women voters, right? And so if you, I mean, at this point, one would argue at any point in 2008 and also in 2020, but 2008, Oprah was like a go-to surrogate. Why? Because women loved Oprah. You're a Black woman, a white woman, or a Latino woman, API. Women just love Oprah.
I still think that there's I think that that's true, but I also think that there's a level of sort of seriousness and balance that Oprah has in terms of her cachet and her celebrity that some of the people who are put in front of us, like, that we've seen over the past couple of election cycles, don't necessarily have. They don't necessarily have that.
Yes, but why candidates and campaigns reach out to celebrity. I don't know anybody that's reached out to Dipset, but Jeezy or the rap community, if you will, is a good example. The hip hop community. Why do candidates and campaigns reach out to folks like that who maybe they don't do politics? They don't really talk about politics all the time, but they believe that they'd be engaging, because there are some people that might not show up to see, candidate Joe Smith, right? But they will show up to see T.I. or
Yeah,
Jeezy
right,
and so on and so
right,
on.
right.
And so you're bringing people into a room that otherwise would never come to that room to get a message that they otherwise would not have heard. And as we discussed, it always goes back to messaging. And part of the barrier, I think, or the challenge, frankly, for the American people right now, and I would also argue us as a media apparatus, is how do you clearly and effectively communicate what is happening to people so that they get the information so they can make the decisions that they want to make.
And that is.
And I think campaigns have that challenge as well.
That is the challenge, right? Like the challenge is being able to meet people where they are.
Yes, I used to say the beauty shops, the barber shops, and the Bible studies.
And I get it. I get it, but I just have heard from a number of people who feel like there's a disproportionate leaning.
So they don't want the rappers.
Well, I think they want the rappers and they want the thinkers, right? It's like I think if there were the thinkers and the people who were really in the space and weighing in on the policy in a way that was informed for people like you and me and our circle of folks, I think people wouldn't mind the rappers. I think when the rappers are the ones who are profiled and that's like, it seems like that's all it is, then it's like, well, you expect. And I love some of these rappers. Don't get me wrong. I have another great conversation coming up with Jeezy that I can't wait to tell y'all about. But I think the perception can be that it is just one-sided. We've had an amazing conversation and super duper appreciative of all of this. But I cannot let you go. You've been in too many different rooms. You've done too many different things. I cannot let you go without getting a really, really good story from you.
Oh my goodness. All the good stories, I can't tell them.
And I got a request. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, there's a request. Okay.
I'm going to put you on the spot. You have an opportunity right now. Your former boss.
Which one?
Right. First black vice president.
Yes.
First
Vice President Kamala Harris.
First female vice president of the United States of America. Your former boss. She has, in many respects, in our community, her authenticity in terms of being a black woman is oftentimes brought into question.
That's so crazy.
Whether it's fair,
hold on.
Let's be very clear because we got to pay bills.
And so. I would defend any black woman in America that was said about it wasn't true.
As you should. I'm not here commenting on whether it's fair.
Okay.
I'm just saying that it's a thing. I don't think it does anyone justice to deny that it is a thing.
But why is it a thing? Do you think?
Oh my gosh, dude! How much time?
I don't have much, but I just would like to know why do you think it's a thing?
Okay, so I'll give you a couple.
Because that's key to how
the story you tell.
Not the story I tell.
I need you to tell a story.
I think it's key to how what people end up doing come 2024.
I need you to tell a story.
She's on the ticket too.
I'm gonna answer your question. I need you to tell a story that's going to counter that narrative, if possible. If possible, right? So. If you want to,
you want me to say the Vice President of the United States of America basically has a dashiki sewn into the inside of her jacket? Is that what you like?
Does she? Because
I don't a proverbial dashiki, I would say.
Proverbial? Yes. No, that's not.
Yes,
that's not
proverbial. I mean, who has an actual dashiki sewn into the jacket?
Kwame Ture might have.
Oh Lord.
But no, I mean, give me a good story about
that. Any story I would tell. I would not tell a story about just like I wouldn't give the intimate details of a conversation I've had with Senator Sanders or something that I have spoken to the president about before. I'm not going to give, but I will say this about the vice president. I think that there is an idea that she went to Howard and discovered black people. And I say that because that is something that I have heard people say. And that's why when you started this part of your question, I was like, that is absolutely terrible because it could be the furthest thing from the truth. But I think this goes back to what I said about misinformation and disinformation. It's a very powerful thing. And I believe that when you go all the way back to, take you back to 2019, when all these candidates were announcing that they were running for president, and if you go back to then candidate Harris and Senator Harris. You spinning this. I'm not a spin. This is just the truth. She had a huge rally. Had this big rally, all these folks. And if you look at how she was introduced to the breadth of the American people in that campaign, again, if you didn't know, if you probably had only heard of her before from the clips from these Supreme Court justice hearings. And in the clips, it's like it's the prosecution as a prosecutor, as a former prosecutor, you know what that looked like. There was no bio really introduced into when she came onto the national stage to run for president. And I think when you have to be very intentional about telling people exactly who you are and never cede the space especially in the media apparatus, to allow do not allow a void to be there, because people will fill in the gaps for themselves. And what voters have done as it relates to the vice president is they filled in the gaps for themselves very early on when they saw her on the big stage. And so in those months after, you heard, she put a lot of black men in jail, she did this, she did that. And some of it was, how many black men did you put in jail when you were a prosecutor?
I was just asking,
how many black men did you put in jail when you were a prosecutor? You probably don't know the numbers, but I'm sure you put some black men in jail.
Were they criminals?
Because if you committed a crime, I'm just saying, all I'm saying, see, now this is a spin.
What's the vice president's favorite MC?
So I say all that to say, and to be clear, she worked on child trafficking and sex trafficking when she was Does
she have a favorite rapper? We need to know this.
Yes, she does. Too Short.
Too Short is her favorite rapper.
Oh my God, yes. Too Short is her favorite rapper. Too Short has been to the White House a number of times. I'm just wondering how y'all think Too Short got to the White House. It was the vice president. But she did a hip hop party for Hip Hop 50 this year. I was definitely on the lawn listening to Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne had a whole concert. And
that's Trump boy.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but I'm a Lil Wayne fan, and I will just take it a personal aside to note, I definitely had a show that day, and people were like, "Are you working?" I said, "Yes, I am, but I don't gotta be there for another hour." I made it, Olivia. I made it. Don't worry. Too Short was at the hip hop rally thing, and he performed. And there was a viral video from that of like the vice president dancing to Vibrant Thing, and I think people were like, some of the people was like, "Okay, auntie," and some other people were like, "This is performative and manufactured." Too Short, the girl from Oakland, the woman is from Oakland. So I just say that to say that it is, when you are a woman especially, but a woman of color, a black woman particularly, you cannot cede your narrative to anyone else. Just because of all of the things that are in the makeup of America, a little racism, a little sexism, a little class, all the things. You have to be and you want to be a candidate, especially if it's a candidate for one of the highest offices in the land, you have to be very specific about telling people who you are and know the definition and don't change it. And I think one of the reasons in which people have these warped ideas of the vice president is that initial campaign that she ran. But I will tell you, my experience with her is that, she an auntie just like every other auntie I know. The campaign, though, is going to have to connect the dots. It is Georgia, if you remember Georgia, the runoff election between Warnock and Herschel Walker. Where has Herschel Walker been since then? I do not know. He was a Republican candidate for Senate in Georgia. And the night that Warnock won the runoff, I was on MSNBC sitting with, I believe, Joy Reid and a number of other folks. Michael Steele was there, my bestie. And I made the point that representation matters. And for black people and black voters, representation matters, but substantive representation matters. Right. And if black voters do not feel as though the representation that they are being presented with is substantive representation, they are not going to move. And so the issue, I think, that the campaign has in 2024 is, in general, there are large swaths of the Democratic Party electorate, the base voters. Now, that's not all. The Biden coalition has some other pieces, independents, moderate Republicans, that are definitely key to his reelection win, but he can't get those folks and not get base voters that include young millennial voters, younger voters, and black voters especially, and other voters of color. So, if they do not feel like they have substantive representation in a Joe Biden and a Kamala Harris, then it is not going to move those various voters to go to the polls.
So much that we could talk about.
But we will not, because we're out of time.
And you was running the clock. I know it is. It's all right. But listen, this has been an amazing conversation with Dr. Symone D. Sanders-Townsend. You can get more of her every weekend, Saturday and Sunday on MSNBC from 8 to 10, along with Michael Steele and my colleague, Elisa Menendez, on the weekend, which is the new anchor show for the weekend on MSNBC.
We
so
love to
please
see you.
make sure you check her out.
Thank you,
This
Charles
has
Coleman.
been an amazing conversation on the couch at the Charles Coleman Podcast. Make sure you are tuned in, liked, and subscribed. And until next week, we'll see you soon. That's Symone Sanders. I'm Charles Coleman. Peace.